Steve, could you just tell me a little bit about the aims of this project?
This project was addressing the need to understand how much nutrients are deposited in the range area of a free-range farm. So I guess the purpose for that is it's currently a knowledge gap. It's quite hard to manage free-range areas, and it's hard to size them correctly when you're doing a new farm development, when you don't know the level of nutrients that might be deposited there. The nutrients we focused on mostly are nitrogen and phosphorus. Now they're, I guess, the major plant nutrients for growing a pasture or a crop, but they're also the main nutrients that will cause an environmental problem if they end up in a waterway, and that's the main, I guess, risk that we're talking about here, is those nutrients either getting into a waterway or getting into groundwater.
And why is that important to know for industry?
From a planning and a management point of view, we need to be able to ensure that those nutrients are not going to cause harm off-site. But to understand that, to site farms correctly and to manage them correctly, we really need to understand what those nutrient levels are so that we can manage them.
And so how did you research this? So I suppose, what was the experimental design for this project?
Yeah, we used a mass balance approach, and what we were able to do and we assessed 2 sheds. We were able to measure all the inputs and outputs from that shed, except the amount that was deposited in the range area. So I guess the calculation was then to determine the range area deposition by difference. And then we're also testing and sampling all those inputs and outputs, the grain, the eggs, the manure, to be able to track not just the total mass, but the actual nitrogen and phosphorus and the ash, potassium flowing through that system.
Now that the research is all finished, what were the findings, and did you find what you expected to, I suppose?
There's been other work showing, let's say from bird behaviour, that birds spend something in the order of 15% of the time outside in the range area. And I guess the starting point for us was to say, well, perhaps the manure excretion is similar to the amount of time they spend in the range area. Our results were quite close to that. What we estimated was a maximum of around 11.6% of excretion in the range area, but there was some variation around that, and that was what we consider the absolute maximum value. The most likely value was lower than that, was at 7.2%.
In terms of the planning on the farm and regulation and all that sort of stuff, does that have any implications?
Yeah, well, it gives greater confidence when it comes to developing a new farm that we can confidently manage that amount of nutrient. And one of the real, I guess, background reasons for doing this work was that if you look to other intensive industries, they have to deal with a lot more nutrient in that context. So like a beef cattle feedlot, for example, where 100% of the manure is deposited in the feed pan of a feedlot. And regulators, they will sometimes look from that context and they'll say, well, here in the free range, can you be confident that the risks are low, and can you be confident that there really isn't a great deal of nutrient deposition going on? And effectively, this research has confirmed that that is the case, and that we can manage it in ways that are going to deliver a good outcome for the environment, but are also not as highly engineered, not as onerous, and don't come with the other problems.